this weekend is pretty massive. And it got massive. Massiver. That's a word. Last week, after obviously the Lone Star results and SMU taking care of business and everybody kind of getting their stuff done in the ACC. We got our games, Mallory. We got our games of the week. Only 2 of them, but we got them.
Should we start with the big dogs?
Let's start with the big dogs.
All right. SEC Championship preview. Texas taking on Georgia for the second time this year. December 7th at 3 p.m. You can watch it on ABC. Texas, 2.5-point favorites. The over-under's 50.5. It's being played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia.
I hate Texas being the favorite in this one, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, you always do this.
No.
I know.
Tell you why.
Yeah, you always do.
Georgia and Kirby Smart,
Homer.
when they made the national championship, and everyone thought they were going to make the national championship, you had Nolan Smith running up to the camera saying, like, y'all thought we were going to go 7-5. Georgia already stomped Texas. Now you're making Texas the favorite. You don't think that's any ammunition for Kirby Smart? I don't like that at all.
It's hard to beat a good team twice, though.
That's true.
We'll say that.
That's why I'm going to go Texas. Spoiler alert.
I'll say this, and I'll let Craven chime in as well. Like, I think that, one, this Georgia team they've looked good one game in, like, the past 2 months, and it was the Texas game. Like, they have not looked that great outside of that. The Tennessee game, sure, they kind of stomped Tennessee, but like as we just saw this past week, they had to go to 75 overtimes against Georgia Tech, and shout out Haynes King, respect.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was awesome.
Respect, big dog. That was a great game. But like, this is a Georgia team that's been so gettable. Carson Beck has been so mid. Like, it's been the most encouraging thing I've seen heading into this game was that Quinn Ewers was able to do what he did on one foot, basically, against a really good A&M defense, right? That's the biggest encouragement because, yeah, this pass rush is going to be a thing. I like Trevor Gooseby, but can he do it against, Walker and those boys at Georgia?
I was thinking about Trevor Gooseby, and this might be a really dumb take, but I feel like jumping in cold off the bench, you don't have time to get nervous, and it's just full-on adrenaline. You've got a week to think about Georgia. Yeah. So I think Kelvin Banks' loss will almost be felt more in this Georgia game. That might be really dumb, but that's what I was thinking about earlier.
Craven, what are your thoughts?
I think Texas has seen Georgia's best shot, and Georgia hasn't seen Texas's. And to me, that leans towards a Longhorn advantage. They're playing the 2 games, can't beat a good team twice, like Mallory said. I tend to agree with that. And then if you go and autopsy the first game, here are Georgia's scoring drives. This is how long they were. 13 yards, 13 yards, 34 yards, 25 yards, 4 yards, and then the 89-yard drive at the end.
Right.
Texas did everything in their power to give Georgia that football game. The Bulldogs had already lost a game that year, back up against the wall. It was crazy in DKR. I think Kirby threw as much at Sark as he possibly could. I think Texas has an advantage going into this rematch because I don't know what else Georgia can do. I don't think there's any more curveball. You're going to see the team you saw in Austin, which is a very good football team. But I think the Longhorns feel like they have so much more that they can show Georgia and do to Georgia that I think Texas is probably the rightful favorite here. Carter picked A&M last week, so I don't want to.
I think Texas saw Georgia's defense's best shot.
I picked them too.
They didn't see Georgia's offense's best shot. Well, Carson Beck had 3 interceptions in that game.
Well, I was going to say.
I think that's just who Carson Beck is.
That's what I was getting at. So I think that the other wrinkle is if they get good Carson Beck, but he hasn't been good Carson Beck.
What is good Carson Beck?
Like against Georgia Tech, he played fine after the into the fourth quarter and overtime, right? Like that, he was kind of very much mid most of the game, but he kind of rallied late when they needed him to. But I'm look at every game after Texas, right? Florida, they win that game, but he threw 3 picks. Mississippi, Ole Miss, the one they lost, they had 10 points, right? 1 pick, no touchdowns. 2 touchdowns against Tennessee, 4 against UMass, and then I mentioned the 5 touchdowns against Georgia Tech. I think this is who Carson Beck is. I think he is a okay quarterback if everything is going right around him, right? I think we've seen with Quinn Ewers that, yes, I think that is there maybe some questions about his ceiling? Maybe. But I think that he's somebody who, more than Carson Beck, can maybe elevate to the occasion more than I've seen Carson Beck do that.
On that Quinn Ewers note,
sure.
This game coming up feels very similar to the last time Texas played Georgia in that Texas is coming off a big rivalry victory over Oklahoma and now Texas A&M, and everyone's hyped up on that. But if the offense plays like it did against You saw it versus how they played against Oklahoma, where Quinn Ewers threw an interception and missed a touchdown pass. And I said before the Georgia game, you play like that again, spot them 21 points, you're going to lose that game. Similarly, in the Texas A&M game, 2 red zone turnovers, a block punt, you're losing to Georgia in this game 10 out of 10.
Fair. So that's fair.
I know everyone's hyped up about the Lone Star Showdown, but there is stuff to fix for this game.
Texas is going to have to run the ball.
Yes.
Trey Wisner kind of coming alive the last few games, I think gives me excitement for the Longhorns. Against Georgia in the first game, they ran the ball 27 times for 29 yards.
Right.
And that, you cannot put this all on Quinn Ewers. Like, you're going to have to be balanced. And as Carter said, the Longhorns have to avoid shooting themselves in the foot because Georgia's too good. Like, you're just not going to make mistakes like that and beat Georgia in what is basically a home game for the Bulldogs.
Yes, 100%. And I think that, again, we saw a lot from Trevor Gooseby that's to be very excited about. I do think Kirby Smart still sees a freshman there, and he's like, let's see what we can – because obviously Jalen Walker is not going to need much help, but I would not be surprised if we see some interesting things done on that side of the ball to maybe give the freshman a little bit more to think about.
What happens if Kirby Smart pants Steve Sarkisian again?
I think that just proves that Kirby Smart is just the best defensive coach in football.
That just says more about Kirby Smart.
Yeah, in my opinion. I think Sark's done enough to where you look at him and you say, if there's one guy that can get him, or maybe 2 with Brent Venables if he doesn't have an anemic offense. But like, if there's
Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, there's but let's say 1 or 2, right? He's one of 2. Sure, then I think you're okay with that. I think that's maybe a problem you have once or twice a year. And if you have those problems, you're in a pretty good situation, i.e. the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
So
not everyone can beat Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like sometimes you knock him out and he hulks up and you're like, oh geez, here we go again. So yeah,
I think Texas has the elite unit in this matchup.
I think so too. Yes, 100%.
Which one?
And the Texas defense.
Okay.
Yes, the unit side of the ball, yes. I think Georgia's defense is fine, but not Georgia caliber that we've seen. I think Jalen Walker's awesome, but I think that secondary-wise, I think there's a reason why I'm not giving Carson Beck much of a chance to be good Carson Beck in this game, if that makes sense. So anything else on this game? It's going to be crazy. I'm very nervous to see because there's going to be a lot of narratives drawn from this game regardless of the result.
Implications Bowl.
It's going to be Georgia's done. It's going to be Texas isn't actually ready for the SEC. It's going to be so many different things. But
anyway. Can you still say Texas isn't ready for the SEC even if they lose this game?
Watch them.
They're going to find a way.
Watch them. Oh, Georgia was the only good teams they played. See, look at that. Oh, they weren't ready. Everybody else is down.
Yeah, A&M's like, see, Georgia was the only good team they played. Wait, what? I will say one more wrinkle in this Arch Manning packages. Kirby Smart's calling a timeout every time Arch Manning comes on the field. After watching that overtime game.
I'm very fascinated to see the wrinkles in that game because that was something that he definitely drew up for A&M to be like, here's some mobile quarterback packages that just throws a wrench in it. And Kirby Smart is dissecting that like the Zapruder film. He's like, okay, what happens when he waves his left hand? Like, is that something going on? I don't know if we see the Arch Manning package in this game, if that makes sense. I think that was something he had for A&M, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm very curious, Craven. I don't know if you have a thought. Maybe he just does. Maybe I'm just overanalyzing. I think that was something he threw in for A&M. I think that's something it's a wrinkle that he just like, nope, you don't get that anymore. You don't get that to study. That's something you have to think about, but I don't think you get that on the field this week.
It might be unless Quinn Ewers' ankle is still really bothered.
Yes. He
looks faster with the robo foot.
I was about to say, that was the slowest 30-yard game on the run.
They're calling him Splint Ewers.
That was the slowest.
Well, he saw Arch playing and was like, I gotta get back out there, guys.
give me that painkiller. I need to go out there. I can run too.
I don't need any backup. I've seen the Dr. Pepper commercial.
That was Unc showing you he still got it. He's like, no. Give me the ball.
It looked like me at the Turkey Trot Thanksgiving bowl game. Running out of bounds on accident.
Alrighty. Mallory, we got one more championship game. We can't forget about the SMU Mustangs.
The only other team playing, only FBS team in the state playing this week. SMU taking on Clemson in the ACC championship this Saturday at 7 p.m. You can watch it on ABC. SMU, 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 53.5, and it's being played at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Craven, you're going to be at this game, aren't you?
Going to be at this game. I'm being cold. I don't know if y'all seen the forecast. In Charlotte, apparently that's cold weather. I thought North Carolina was hot. I thought that was the South. I'm wrong. Go back to yourself in August, especially you, Mallory, and
wow.
Try to imagine SMU not only making the ACC championship game, but being favored against Clemson.
Can't.
Just amazing. Just an amazing job. Scott Simons today named a finalist for the Broyles Award.
Much deserved.
I think, much deserved. I think we're going to, not just you and not just us, but I think as a whole, a college football community, we're going to talk about the offenses a lot in this thing. Clemson scores 35.7 points a game. SMU is almost at 40 points a game. But this is going to be the defense. Like, which defensive unit can steal a couple of possessions? This is going to be a high-scoring game. I think the winner is going to be in the 30s or the 40s. But which defense can either score on their own or just come up with some stops? I think I trust SMU's defense a little bit more, which is not something I thought I'd say on.
Well, because SMU likes to score touchdowns themselves. Get Club Takeaway fired up.
Yeah. I think for me, the thing in this game that I'm very fascinated by is there was a point in the season where everybody was like, oh, Miami and Clemson are just going to meet, right? And there was a sticking feeling in the back of my mind where I was like, has Clemson played anybody? The better question is, have they beaten anybody? Because this team got bullied by South Carolina last week. A South Carolina team that looks pretty good.
And Georgia, we just talked about them. Oh, it didn't look good in the week 1 of the season. I know it's a long time ago.
Didn't look great. Only a loss, Louisville. You want to talk about their wins on the season? Is Pitt their best win on the season?
Maybe.
I think Pitt might be their best win on the season. And I'm not saying that they're not going to be competitive in this game. I think that defense is going to be probably one of the better ones that SMU has seen this year, right? But I'm very curious if this is a game where we were continuously, I say we, the royal we, not just necessarily us on the show. I think the royal we was looking at Clemson as like a shoe-in, as like, oh yeah, they're just going to, Cade Klubnik was getting Heisman hype, and it was like, were we just watching them beat up on a bad schedule?
I'm going to say something that the Pony Express might run me over for. Ask if Clemson has beat anybody. Has SMU played anybody? Their best game is Louisville.
I think that's more of a data point than I would give for TCU would be Clemson's best win.
Okay, maybe that's fair.
I think TCU would be SMU's Clemson's best win by a good margin.
Overall point is I don't buy this narrative coming into the game that SMU doesn't have to win this game and still makes the college football playoff. I think Clemson, if they were in SMU spot, yes, they don't have to win this game, but brands do matter in the college football playoff selection. It's unfair, but life is unfair.
Sure.
SMU, I believe, has to win this game to get in the college football playoff. I don't want to be at the mercy of the committee losing this game in the ACC championship.
That's a fair call.
Yeah, you don't want to put up a helmet next to Alabama.
Right. Yes.
Right. Exactly. I mean, ask Baylor and TCU in 2014 with Ohio State. Right. I mean, this is a money making deal. The fairness comes second.
Right.
I do think just the game wise, what I find interesting about this matchup is SMU does create a lot of turnovers. Clemson's only turned the ball over 9 times all year.
Sure.
They have a plus 14 turnover margin, and it's not because they create a ton of turnovers. They're right there at about 23. They just don't turn the ball over at all. 6 interceptions total, only 3 fumbles lost. Again, I think both offenses are going to score and move the ball up and down the field. I think it's going to be a fun, exciting game. But if the defense, like Carter said, can score on their own or set up their offense late, I think that could be the difference in this one. I'm really excited to see this game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I really do think it's going to be a very fantastic game, because the other thing that I think that's another wrinkle is SMU. Of course, Kevin Jennings has been a big story in the offense, but it's been the run game of Brashard Smith. I think this defensive front is going to be the best they've seen, other than you can make an argument for Duke as well, but Clemson's rush defense in particular has been really, really good.
Well, I just looked; they're 14th in the conference in rushing defense.
Really?
Yeah, they're down low.
PFF has them completely on the mark, is high 80s grades.
Yeah, well, I haven't watched a lot of them, so I'm just going off stats.
We'll see. I mean, the NFL prospects and all that are along the defensive line, and so maybe we'll see. I'm just very curious about all year that's been their defense. It's been, obviously, and then Cade Klubnik turning it around a little bit, but it's been that defense in particular that's been pretty good for them, and I'm very fascinated to see how SMU handles. Last time they played a stout defense, we saw how many turnovers they had, right, against Duke. So, what does that unit have for SMU defense that's overmatched quite a bit. Most of the teams they played this season, I would say, just by sheer talent or just like sheer scheme as well, with Kevin Jennings and Brashard Smith just being better than anybody else they have on the other side of the field.
The run game note's very interesting to me because we talk about who could have predicted at the beginning of the year that SMU would be favored against Clemson in the ACC championship. Who could have predicted that maybe their advantage is in the run game and pounding the rock at Clemson's defense with Brashard Smith? He's been unbelievable this year. And I think they especially need to lead on the run game because Clemson has 3 guys with over double-digit tackles for loss, which means they're getting after the quarterback. And so I think the run game combined with Kevin Jennings and Brashard Smith is going to be huge for them in this game.
Yeah, Clemson allows 4.58 yards a run. Some of that's big play stuff. They've been kind of susceptible to that. I don't think they're a great tackling team in the secondary. So if you can get through it, I think you're going to be okay there. But I think if you're Clemson, you're worried about SMU's speed and tempo. Yeah. And if you're SMU, you're worried about Clemson's just size and depth. And the team that can meet the other in that challenge, I think, comes away with this one. And I'm with Carter. I think SMU should be in the college football playoff if they don't get blown out against Clemson.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I agree.
I just don't trust this committee to leave Alabama or Ole Miss out in favor of SMU. I just don't.
No, yes, 100%. I agree. It's a helmet game at that point, and you're looking at Bama. You're looking at who's the other ones? Ole Miss, South Carolina. Who even South Carolina looked great. It has looked really good.
Yeah, beat Clemson.
Yeah, they beat Clemson in a game that was a slobber knocker of a game. And like if you're looking at the committee again, obviously I think the team is Bama, but Ole Miss, if you look at just 13 through 15, those 3 teams, SEC over ACC every time to these people.
I think we have enough data points to say you can't put your faith in the college football playoff committee if you're SMU.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You got to go take care of business on the field.
Yep, absolutely. So those are those games, and that's all we had for this week. But which means all our eyes are going to be on those.
The crazy thing about it is SMU could either be the 3 seed or out.
That is crazy to think about. That is very
crazy. And they're going to get punished for playing an extra game where like Indiana, at 11-1, they're in. Yeah. And I do think that they're going to protect the Big Ten loser and the SEC loser. I worry that they don't care about any of the other ones. And that includes SMU, unfortunately.
Yeah, they don't. That includes, because the Big 12 loser is definitely out. ACC, Jesus, because I'm trying to think of all the Big Ten teams: Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State.
Because they've really been leaning on, like, if you watch these shows, which I have to, and it's like my least favorite part of the job, honestly. But if you watch these shows, they talk a lot about your best win. They don't really care necessarily who you lose to. Right. It's who have you beaten. And as we talked about earlier, SMU just doesn't. I mean, TCU probably is their best win. Yeah. Maybe Duke. And then if they're up against an Alabama team that's beat Georgia and say Georgia just won the SEC championship, those suits are I don't know. It's a bad position to be if you're SMU. It's going to be unfortunate.
No, I agree. And it comes from, I think, them underrating SMU all this whole season. Right, like it comes like they're having.
It's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like when they were unranked, and it took for them forever to get in the ranking in the first place. Like the highest they're going to get, of course, is just 9 because they've had to work their way up from being unranked through a bad ACC schedule. So yeah,
and Clemson has to get in the second SMU's in too. That was very funny.
Yeah, that was very hilarious. Yes, that it was like, oh yeah, by the way, we got 2 in there. So
tonight's rankings are gonna if they're in the top 7 or so, a close loss may not drop them.
Yeah.
But if they're still 8, 9 in that range or whatever, that's the committee telling you what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. It's going to come down to how far Ohio State's ranking is going to be very funny.
That's
in a very Joker way. Like I'm going to
and Miami.
I'm going to good point. And Miami. I'm going to lose my mind because I don't. Miami should fall behind. Obviously, I think we'll fall behind SMU to some extent. Ohio State should, in my opinion.
The committee's like, Ohio State showed a lot of fight in the Michigan game. Good loss. Most of the fight was after the game ended, but a lot of good fight.
We love that for them.
Good one.
They're 5 anyway. So there's our stuff for the weekend.